The Miami Hurricanes just finished up their Saturday scrimmage at CanesFest. Here's who and what stood out.
You are Locked On Canes, your daily podcast on the Miami Hurricanes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I am Alex Donno, your host, University of Miami alumnus, longtime South Florida sports radio vet, and contributor to allhurricanes.com. And thank you so much to the everydayers for making Locked On Canes your first listen. We are available free wherever you get your podcasts and available free on YouTube. So Miami just had their CanesFest scrimmage, full practice at Hard Rock Stadium, open to the public. I think a couple thousand people at least were out there. It was nice to meet some of you folks out there. We had some everydayers come up to us, which I appreciate. There were definitely a couple of mild surprises and peculiarities on the depth chart. I encourage you guys, we'll talk about it, but don't read too much into some of these things because depth charts are not set in stone in August, but there were some things that got my attention. But let's talk about the overall play from Miami's first team offense and first team defenses today. The first team was pretty sharp today at times. They got into the end zone a couple times, but there was definitely a drop-off from the first team down to the second teams and third teams. Now, even when the first team offense was moving it pretty well, keep in mind, very little contact in this scrimmage, and sometimes the offense maybe got some extra opportunities just so they could stay on the field. It wasn't always, an equal deck of cards that they were dealing with today, but it's clear, and it was clear today, Tyler Van Dyke was far and away the best quarterback on that field. And this is one of the things people are going to be talking about a lot today for those who are out there. Damari Williams outperformed Jacurri Brown today. Jacurri missed a lot of throws today. I was frustrated on his behalf. The accuracy from Miami's second-team quarterback was not on point. And it's not like Emery set the world on fire or anything, but, he completed a lot more routine balls and did some good things on offense. So based on what I saw today, I don't know if there really is a competition for the backup quarterback spot, but maybe there could be. But Jacurri Brown was always with the second teamers, and Damari Williams was always with the third team. But I talked about Tyler Van Dyke making some good throws, making some big time throws today. He connected with his guy, Xavier Restrepo, on a deep ball, and X laid out for it, made a great catch. Miami scored a touchdown a play later. Later, kind of after the scrimmage period, they were doing red zone drills, and Van Dyke and Colby Young connected on a fade into the end zone in those drills. Was a really good throw and catch in practice. Colby Young, I think he's going to be a problem this year for opposing defenses. He's trimmed down. He's gotten faster, but he looks stronger. He's cut. He's moving well, and being 6'5" plus with those long arms, he's a tough guy to deal with in those jump ball and 50-50 situations. I think Colby Young is going to make a lot of plays today, and it's really nice seeing Colby, who was one of the first-team wide receivers today. As you would expect, it was Colby Young, Jacoby George, and X were the first receivers out today. But for Colby to be able to have more time to build that chemistry with Tyler Van Dyke, because they didn't have a whole lot of time with that last year, because right when Colby started to get more playing time was right before Van Dyke got hurt. So you had to throw a lot of that early chemistry out the window. Defense, Rueben Bain did get reps with the ones today at right defensive end. This is one of those you don't want to read too much into, although Bain is awesome. I'm not taking anything away from Hurricane Bain. He's going to get on the field. But the reason why Bain was with the first teamers today was Akeem Mesidor was held out of the scrimmage, and he usually plays right in front of Bain on the depth chart. But I like what I saw from Bain wearing that number 44. You got to keep track of him on the field at all times. He got into the backfield several times. The defense was disruptive. When it came to putting pressure on the quarterbacks, the D-line was disruptive today. And Bain got in that backfield. He had a nice play where he batted down a pass from Tyler Van Dyke, and he was credited with a sack as well, was Rueben Bain. So on this day, the starting defensive front, the starting front four for Miami, keeping in mind Mesidor probably will be there, but he was held out today. It was Bain, Leonard Taylor, Branson Dean, and Nyjalik Kelly. And for other guys getting sacks and creating disruptions, I saw LT Nyjalik Kelly get credited with sacks. Anthony Campbell, who was not playing with the first teamers, he was playing, I think, with the third teamers, but that's the transfer defensive lineman that a lot of you guys ask me about. How's Anthony Campbell doing? He was credited with 2 sacks in the game today, so that was a nice thing to see. And I also saw some nice stuff from a freshman defensive end who was working with the third teamers, but there's a lot of good stuff with this guy, and that's Jaden Wayne. Jaden Wayne, third team offensive line, could not keep this guy in check. Jaden Wayne, I think he was credited with 2 or 3 sacks on the day. We didn't have official stats, so some of these have to be estimates, but I think he got like 3 sacks today. He was getting into the backfield a ton, was Jaden Wayne. He's going to be a good one at Miami. Now, we talked about Rueben Bain getting reps with the ones. A lot of people were talking about that today. Jacurri Brown not having a good day. Everyone's talking about that. Here's another thing that everyone's talking about, and I want to get to it on the other side. James Williams not running with the first team today. Why? Is there a reason? Do we even need a reason? We'll talk more about the top performers and the sights and sounds today at CanesFest. Open scrimmage. I hope the guys, those of you who came out, had a good time today, but we will talk about James Williams and more when we come back. You're going to want to keep it locked right here to Locked On Canes. My friends, for a championship team, it's all about making sure every player is a perfect fit. And it's the same when it comes to your vehicle. Every part needs to fit just right. So the next time you need parts and accessories, head to eBay Motors. With eBay Guaranteed Fit, you can be sure every part you need fits right the first time around. Just add your ride to My Garage and look for the green check to know the part will fit or your money back. Because just like in sports, confidence is the name of the game when you shop at eBay Motors. And with over 122 million parts to choose from, you'll be back in the game in no time. After all, it's easy to bring home a win when the right parts are guaranteed. Get the right parts, the right fit, and the right prices on ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers, eligible items only, and exclusions apply. Thank you so much to the everydayers for making Locked On Canes your first listen. And if you'd like to take your everydayer experience to the next level, sign up for our exclusive SMS texting service through Subtext. I include a link in the show description below. I was all over Subtext today. I must have sent out like 30 live updates from CanesFest this morning on, who was making plays, who was running with the ones and twos and all that good stuff. For those who couldn't be there, I was your eyes and ears today. So if you want updates like that, if you want recruiting scoops, if you want breaking news, and if you want one-on-ones with me, you can get it all on our Subtext community. Click the link in the show description below. You could try it free for 14 days. And then if you like it, you could opt in, and it's $4.99 a month after that. We give you a lot of added value on there. So check out our exclusive Subtext campaign. So this got people talking, and this surprised me, right? When I looked at the first team offense and the first team defense trot out there to start the scrimmage, I didn't see number 20 lined up with the first team safeties. James Williams was not a first team safety today. Markeith Williams ran alongside Kam Kinchens as the first team safeties. This is one of those folks where I don't think I'm going to read too much into this at the very moment. I mean, if anything, this means Markeith Williams is doing well enough in practice that he's warranting some first team looks and consideration, because every indication that I've gotten to this point is James Williams is having a fine fall camp. So, and I expect him to be a starting safety along with Kam Kinchens week 1. But Markeith Williams was running with the ones primarily today, and James Williams was primarily running with the twos. This is one of those things where I try not to, and you shouldn't overreact to anything you see on an August depth chart. But that was definitely something that got my attention today. That was interesting today. Now, I was beyond impressed by the new running backs, okay? They put on a show today, and I can kind of see, and I like to say this is great for the O-line and great for the running backs, but then on the other side of it, it's like, well, how come they're making plays against our defense, right? I can understand why a week ago, Lance Guidry, Miami's defensive coordinator, was a little bit, annoyed about his rushing defense, because some plays were made on the outside. They're not necessarily doing the best job setting the edge, but Ajay Allen, the transfer running back out of Nebraska, he was worth his weight in gold today. Very fast. He makes great cuts. and he is a playmaker. Ajay Allen had a couple of runs, and again, I don't have exact stats and yardage on these, but I was trying to calculate the yardage in my head when I was watching these plays break off. Ajay Allen busted off a run of about 50 yards and then another of about 25 yards a little bit later in the scrimmage. So Ajay Allen looked really good today. Mark Fletcher, boy, put him on a stretcher, Fletcher. I can understand why they call him that. At one point, Mark Fletcher collided with a would-be tackler, and you could hear the thud. You know, I was in the 100 level. You could probably hear the thud in the 200s and the 300s and a couple blocks away from the stadium, and Fletcher ran through the contact and kept moving forward. He's so good and so strong. And Fletcher broke off a couple big runs as well. Not as big. Ajay Allen was more explosive. He was the most explosive of the running backs out there, but Fletcher did some good things, showed me some good hands, catching screens out of the backfield, and he got to the end zone twice today, did Fletcher. And Fletcher was, now, Henry Parrish did start. He was the first team running back, but they rotated the running backs in a lot, where Fletcher got a lot of work with the first team, and so did Ajay Allen. So Mark Fletcher looks as good as advertised. You would never guess this guy is barely 18 years old. Henry Parrish and Don Chaney also got plenty of work and looked fine. And it's really nice to see Chaney looking more like his old self again. So Miami's got good looking depth right now at the running back position. And this is without really seeing Chris Johnson, who's, true freshman, very fast. And obviously Trevante Citizen is still working his way back from injury. So at some point this year, Miami may have 5, if not 6 options at the running back position of guys who can all carry the load. I was really impressed with the running back room today. The starting offensive line, they had their hands full with Miami's D-line, but the starting O-line, they were exactly what you would expect at this point. Jalen Rivers at left tackle, because Zion Nelson is still not ready for scrimmages yet. Jalen Rivers, Javion Cohen, Matt Lee, Inez Cooper, and Francis Maui-Noah. And at this point, listen, again, I know I say don't put too much stock into August depth charts, but young Francis has been running with the ones since, the second, third day of spring football. So that's been really consistent. There are some spots where guys have been rotated. You're a 1 today, you're a 2 tomorrow. Francis has been a 1 for several months now. I think he's going to end up being the starter at right tackle this year. That's like the worst kept secret out there. So let's talk about some receivers before we talk about a pleasant surprise at cornerback. A wide receiver who had a really good scrimmage today was Michael Redding III. And I was happy to see it because this is a guy we don't talk about a lot. We probably don't talk about him enough on this show. No matter which quarterback was throwing to him, number 13, that's what Redding wears. He was catching everything, making plays. Jacoby George, number 3, had some good moments catching passes from Tyler. He's going to be really dangerous with some of the shorter and intermediate routes and yards after the catch. He's really shifty. So is Shamar Kirk. Shamar Kirk was getting work with the second team today. He had some good moments, even though, unfortunately the second team quarterback wasn't connecting that well today. Jacoby George, Colby Young, who we talked about, had a nice grab, and Xavier Restrepo, they were the starting wideouts today. Tyler Harrell was working with the second team. He caught a few balls. He put his quickness on display today. And Ray Joseph. Ray Joseph got into the end zone during red zone drills. He's going to make a great outlet for the short passing game and in the red zone. Ray's going to be really shifty and really, really dangerous. All right, so I got one more thing on a suspected depth chart note I want to get to when we come back. So you're going to want to keep it locked right here to Locked On Canes. Thank you so much for making Locked On Canes your first listen today. We're available free wherever you get your podcasts and available free on YouTube. And for the everydayers, you don't even have to wait another day for our next episode. Later on tonight, we're going to break down the newest quarterback commit to Miami, 2025 Luke Nickel, committed to the U. Our pal Chalupa Batman is going to join us to break down Luke Nickel. We're also going to talk about a teammate of Luke's who may be on Miami's target list for another 2025 possibility. And, folks, there could be a flip. Miami could land a class of 2024 flip. We're going to talk about that and more later on today on another episode of Locked On Canes. Now, here's someone who's been getting a significant amount of work with the ones. And again, I want to stress this. The depth chart is not done. It is a work in progress. This is still a moving target. It's not set in stone yet, but I can't help but notice Damari Brown true freshman corner out of American Heritage. He was first team today. There was at least 1 day in practice that I noticed he was running with the ones. Damari Brown, who, I guess he has the benefit when it comes to communication in the defensive backfield. He could share a defensive backfield with his older brother, Davonte Brown, who's probably going to be a starting corner. Davonte was the other starting corner today, opposite Damari Brown. So Damari, just watch out for him. Again, there's no guarantee he ends up being the starter come week 1, but I am taking notice of the young man. He's getting reps with the ones, and he's making the most of it. He's making a meal out of it. So I could see a scenario where Damari Brown and Davonte Brown, couple of brothers, couple of siblings, end up being a starting cornerback duo this season at the University of Miami. That's pretty exciting. And Damari continues to thrive out there. I want to send you guys a shout out before we wrap up this episode. And man, I'm sweating. I'm still like, it's not as hot inside as it was outside earlier today, but I'm still sweating from earlier. And thank goodness Hard Rock Stadium has that canopy, because if I wasn't sitting in the shade, I would be like I would be a stain like on the floor of Hard Rock Stadium. I would have completely melted into that. All right, so you guys have been sending us some new 5-star reviews on Apple Podcasts. When we get those, we like to shout those out. Ooh, and I got one. I'm gonna have to do it next time, because one of our everydayers who's an Android person. I say that as if it's like you're an alien or an Android person, but an Android person did send me a copy of his 5-star review, but I don't have it on me quite this second. So we will shout that out on another time. But we get one from J-Rod, who says, always has something to say, even if kind of nerdy. Keep up the good work. What do you mean kind of nerdy? Nobody's cooler than me, but thank you. We get one from Romstead, who says, love listening. Great information. Great guest hosts. I think he gave up on David Stone because I don't hear him talking about David Stone anymore. Listen, Miami's still working on David Stone. I think David Stone has been long considered an Oklahoma lean. However, I think Stone appreciated Miami made a recruiting edit for his very younger brother that he was showing around at a IMG Media Day the other day. He was pretty proud of that. So Miami's still chipping away there. I don't consider Miami the favorites for David Stone. But Stoney, if you're listening, man, come down to Miami. Life is good down here. We get one from Sunrise Mike, a 5-star review, who says, I've been listening since day one, and this is a great podcast. Alex does an amazing job of being objective and equally enthusiastic about our Canes. I highly recommend adding this to your subscriptions. Go Canes. Thank you so much. We get one from D Jack, who says, listen every day on my way to pick up my son, and you give unbiased takes. Thank you so much. I think those are all the new ones. So that'll do it, guys. We're on later today for the everydayers. We're like every hour-ers today. We're on like every hour of the day. We'll be back later this evening with Chalupa Batman talking about Luke Nickel and talking about a potential recruiting flip that Miami is working on. So we'll talk to you guys next time on another episode of Locked On Canes, part of the awesome Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.